sorry, we were at Obama's first administration, and I created this lore. And basically, the way that it goes is that it's World War III. Donald Trump is president. Again, he was never running at this time. For some reason, I was like, it'd be funny if Donald Trump became president because he's an asshole.
Oh my gosh.
Right? So Donald Trump is president, right? It's World War III. We're at battle with Korea, losing terribly. And basically what happens is that Donald Trump hears about this super serum that somehow creates super soldiers. This should help me win the war, right? So it's created by this crazy sage named Douglas. Like, he's really smart. The virus is to go find me, and he brings me back and he says, hey, I found out that you can create super soldiers. And I said, yeah, but it kind of depends on their diagnosis. And he was like, what? And I was like, well, their DSM diagnosis, depending on what their diagnosis is, it'll activate different powers within the soldier, within the person. And he was like, what the fuck? All right, sure. So my brother, he's the baddest motherfucker, but he's definitely a wild card, right? And I was like, okay, cool. So and basically he turns into the antisocial. He's right in the middle, right? So I give him the serum, and basically what happens is that his muscles becomes bigger, he becomes strong, and everything he touches starts to burn. So stronger. Donald Trump is like, oh, hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what we need, like making more of those, right? Yeah. And I was like, I don't know if that's a good idea. And then I asked the brother, like, what diagnosis did you even have? And he said, oh, I have antisocial. I like to kill people. I like to torture animals. Yikes, didn't mean to do that. And then Trump was like, well, it's already done. Let's just continue with the process. And the brother was like, well, since I'm the first person with the serum, I need an army. I need to create more of me so that we can go win the war, because I can't win it by myself. So what he does in New York, the streets, and he looks for the unnoticeables, the bad kids, so one of them, he was like, you want to give your useless life some existence? And of course, the guy says, I don't give a fuck, sure, why not? Donald Trump's brother finds one random person who's just obviously like a bad person, as society would view that, the people of color maybe, and then he touches their heart. And then since he's full of black flame, the person's heart becomes full of red flame, right? And then they become the pyromaniac deck, right? Okay. He touches his heart and a bunch of other persons of colors, and then they become the pyromaniacs. And they don't get muscular like he does, but they're filled with black flame, and they're overcome with rage and anger, and they're really good soldiers, So antisocial with his army of pyromaniacs, they kick Kim Jong-un's ass, and they beat him, right? And they win the war. Donald Trump is all happy. Hell yeah, I'm the greatest. I swear I was the greatest. I knew I was the greatest. America's the greatest. We got the greatest everything. And I'm like, I did all the work, but okay, And he's like, okay, well, this thing obviously works. I think I'm ready to have the serum myself. And I was like, actually, I'm not trying to do that anymore. And he forces me to, because he's the president, and I give him the serum, and he becomes narcissistic personality disorders, right? There's a trading card game. Now, you won't be able to trade the cards amongst these 5 decks, but there are actually 25 decks, okay? Oh, wow. This is the first 5. After these first 5 come out, then the next 5 will come out. And then the next 5 will come out. And then those will be able to be trade amongst each other. He gets his serum. He was like, oh, that's great. Now, you know what? You did such a good job. I don't need you anymore. Okay, just give me the serum. You go back to your little cave and do what you need to do. So I leave because I don't really want nothing to do with this anymore. I already felt like I did too much, and I kind of screwed up the world a little bit, unbalanced it with these new powerful beings. So I kind of go back to my recluse, which is what I prefer anyway. They win the war. Trump's brother gets bored, right? And he just kind of like leaves too, right? So I leave, do my own thing. His brother already won the war. He did what he needed to do. He leaves and creates havoc somewhere else. Problem is that the pyromaniacs are now just chilling in the streets with all this power, all this anger, and nowhere to go with it, and doesn't really know what to do with themselves. So they're kind of just wreaking havoc now. Donald Trump is like, oh, I know what to do. I already have a military. I'm just going to inject them with the serum, and everything should be fine. Hence creating the anxiety disorder decks, right? The PTSD disorder decks and stuff like that, all the anxiety type disorders. So he goes to a commandant and he injects him first. And basically the commandant had obsessive compulsive personality disorder, right? So because of that, he gets super speed. He has to move around super quickly because he can't sit still because of anxiety, and he can predict things because he's always in the future, thinking about the future. Just like people with anxiety are always worried about what's going to happen next, he can actually predict the future because of his. So it's like a mix of the Flash, you know, with a little bit of future prediction and so on and so forth. He touches the hearts of his soldiers, creating the blue decks, which are the anxiety decks, right? Now, with him and his army of anxiety decks, they try to go clean up the streets of the pyromaniacs that are still left. They battle, they go left and right. Eventually, the anxiety wins out and drives the rest of the pyromaniacs out of the city. All right, so now they're gone. They're gone, he's gone. And now you just have these three, okay? So what happens next is that they win the battle, I guess you could say the second war, against the pyromaniacs. And now they're just like, well, what do we do now? You know, like we've seen so much carnage. We have to kill our own people for the most part, like our friends and family that were POC, persons of colors, just because they had to serve a purpose and whatever, we don't need them more. Now we feel shitty. Yeah, we won, but we feel shitty. He comes to me again. He says, oh, I kind of made a mess. I need you to fix this up. And I was like, you know what? This is my chance to take the power away from Trump. So what I do is I go to his brother and I ask for his advice. You know what? I know you like to cause chaos. You know, can you help me overthrow Trump? And the brother's like, that's my brother, bro. And I was like, yeah, but you like chaos, though. And he was like, yeah, you're right. And I was like, let's just do this for shits and giggles. And he was like, you know what? Let's just fuck with him. Why not? So I was like, how do we do this? He's already a super serum person with this, you know, personality disorder, his narcissistic personality disorder. How are we going to take him out? And the brother was like, well, you know, Trump always had, you know, weakness for the ladies, you know. And I was like, oh, okay. Is there any woman from his past that we can use maybe to seduce him? And he was like, yeah, you know, there's this one girl that he could never get, you know, could never get over. Her name is Mary Jane. Let's go visit this Mary Jane. Let's give her the serum and get her to seduce him. So we give Mary Jane the serum. Dependent personality disorder. With personality disorders tend to affect other people by turning them into these things: depression, anxiety, pyromaniac, substance use. If you had a father with a personality disorder or a mother with personality disorder, you know this for a fact that you have a lot of options where you can go in. Sometimes it's depression, sometimes it's anxiety. And my game kind of takes that whole theme where it starts off with these characters who are personality disorders, yellows, and then they create these other types of decks, these other colored decks. So we tell Mary Jane, who gets the serum, she turns into dependent personality disorder, dependent, right? She touches the hearts of her servants, her followers on Instagram, who are obsessed with her, creating the substance use disorder decks. Hence the dependence, hence the obsession. It's all tied together. So we take Mary Jane, you know, and her army of cannabis decks, and we just go to subdue the anxiety decks because they're already anxious. So we're like, hey, you know what? You go to them, right? Go tell them that we have a way to take the pain away temporarily, you know, subdue them a little bit so that we can overtake Donald Trump because they'll be too high to even resist. So it works. So they have a battle, green decks versus blue decks, which is the cannabis deck versus the anxiety deck. We don't know who wins, okay? But what we do know is that Donald Trump realizes what's happening and he flees, okay? So we don't get a chance to assassinate him or anything like that. Oh. Don't come after me, social services, it's just a game. Okay? Where I need to just wash everything away and just be done with it. And hopefully that would make, you know, like penance for what I've done, creating these characters. And I hear someone crying, you know, and it's a woman being mugged, right? So I run towards there and I'm like, what the hell's going on? Let me see if I could go help them, you know? And what's actually happening is that the woman is no longer being mugged. A guy intervened and stopped the mugger. But the problem is that this guy he's so fed up with the war between the pyromaniac and the anxiety and everything going on is that he's just tired. He's angry. So he takes out his anger on this person. And he's just pounding and pounding and pounding and pounding. The guy already gave up, but he's just pounding. So the woman is actually hollering for the attacker because she's afraid that this vigilante is going to kill him, like a Batman type character. So I stopped the vigilante in his place and I let the crook run away, you know, and I look at him and I was like, why did you do that? And he said, this world is rotten. This world is rotten. I don't know how it got this way, but this world is so rotten. And I was like, you're perfect. You are perfect. You are the person that I need to fix this. So I was like, how about you be my true soldier? And he was like, what do I need to do? And I was like, I'm gonna give you this serum. And I asked him, what diagnosis do you have? He was like, well, you know, I have borderline personality disorder. And I was like, well, let's see how that works out. So I squeezed the serum inside of him and he becomes the borderline personality. So he touches the heart of one of his trusted friends. And then that person becomes the depression deck. And that person starts to, and see the connection there, borderline, depression, mood disorders, right? Mm-hmm. Even though borderline is not a mood disorder, but it's kind of connected because you have the instability of relationships and so on and so forth. It's the closest link to mood disorders that I could think of. So he touches that person's heart and that person becomes, you know, starts to become invisible almost, you know, starts to become, you know, see-through. He is like, what the fuck? And then he touches someone else and they become invisible. And I was like, dude, that is make invisible ninjas. Let's do this. And I started thinking about it. I was like, well, you know, people with depression do feel like they're invisible and they feel like people can't see them. So it does make sense, you know, and let's do this. So I take my army of depression deck and my borderline personality disorder individual, and I create a meeting, right? I said, you know what? I'm so sorry with everything that's happened. You know, I want to, you know, formally apologize to you, Donald Trump, and your brother, and all of the personality disorder decks, like all of you guys, like, you know, dependent personality, and you too, obsessive compulsive personality disorder. Let's all get together and have a meeting. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about how we can coexist. Little do they know that it's a trap. You know, I'm trying to take them all out, you know, because they keep creating they keep creating more depression decks, and they keep creating, not depression decks, that's my people, but more anxiety decks and more pyromaniacs and more chaos and more cannabis. So I want to take them out once and for all. So I create this fake meeting, and I said, okay, well, this is the reason we need to all figure this out and work together. And of course, because of their personality disorders, they're like, please, is that what this is about? Are you wasting our? And I say, you know what? I give you guys your last chance, and now I have to do this the hard way. And I flick my fingers, and the room gets filled with all depression deck ninjas that have been already in the room waiting, but they're invisible, so no one sees them. And the personality disorders are so in their personality that they didn't even notice that they were being jumped. And then, of course, my main guy, Bipolar, comes in, and he's ready. He's got a full ninja outfit, a full suit. And then they attack. And then the lights kind of go out. And that's basically the end of my after like maybe 10 or 20 years of the serum still around. You know, you have these people because they have kids and their kids have kids. So you've got these kids with, you know, these powers that they don't really know how to control it. And, you know, they're not necessarily trying to be bad, but they have these disabilities, you know, depression, anxiety, so on and so forth. And they just want to be normal. And they come to kind of like an X-Men vibe, right? They come to the school of gifted people or school of people with disorders. And I'm there, you know, and I'm there to teach them that if you could just look for your needs, right? Your basic needs, your love needs, right? Your esteem needs. If you can get these on a day-to-day basis, kind of like catch them all Pokemon, you know, you can not necessarily subdue your powers, but learn how to be more in control of it so that it's not in control of you. And it translates to real world that, you know, like say you have depression or anxiety, if you could learn to start advocating for your needs and start getting your needs, then the behavioral stuff shouldn't be out. And you shouldn't be getting negative attention because of your behaviors, because you learn how to advocate for your needs. Comfortable with expressing or talking about mental illness or even seeking help or even think about seeking help. They don't have to be afraid about talking about illness, and they don't have to suffer alone and take their own life because they feel like no one will understand when there's so many people who are suffering the same way you are suffering.